Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Inshallah, today, to talk to you about the deen and how to conquer the desire and to resist temptations, we have Imam Suhaib Webb. Imam Suhaib Webb is a contemporary Muslim activist, educator, and lecturer. His work bridges classical and contemporary Islamic thought, addressing issues of cultural, social, and political relevance to Muslims in the West. After converting to Islam in 1992, Imam Suhaib Webb left his career in the music industry to pursue his passion in education. He earned a bachelor's in education from the University of Central Oklahoma and received intensive private training in the Islamic sciences under a renowned Muslim scholar of Senegalese descent. From 2004 to 2010, Suhaib Webb studied at the Islamic Institution of Learning at Al-Azhar University in the College of Sharia. Outside of his studies at Al-Azhar, Suhaib Webb completed the memorization of the Quran in the city of Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Imam Suhaib Webb was named one of the 500 most influential Muslims in the world by the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Center in 2010. And his website, www.suhaibwebb.com, was voted the best blog of the year by the 2009 Brass Crescent Awards. He recently accepted a position as the Imam of the Islamic Society of Boston's Cultural Center on December 1st, 2011, and moved to Boston with his family. So inshallah, as I said, he will be talking about how we can use the deen to conquer our desires. Now we mentioned the word desire, but it's something that we really give no consideration to. We mentioned this word, but it almost leaves no impact on us. The thing about the desire is that it is something that has no limits, no boundaries. It constantly wishes to be expressed, and it constantly wishes to be expressed unhindered. But because of the severity of this, it is literally at the core of the test of life. And as Muslims, our lives are only a test. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down His divine law, the Sharia. And the Sharia has placed these limitations and these boundaries on life for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everything in a balance. So just as there is a desire to do bad, there is also a desire to do good. So for you today, inshallah ta'ala, we have Imam Suhaib Webb to enlighten us on how we can use our deen to conquer our desires for good, to motivate us to do good works. And also how we can use our deen to conquer our desires for bad, so that we can restrain ourselves from doing haram. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that none of you is a believer until he submits his desires to that which I have brought forth, the Quran and the Sunnah. Now I'd like to repeat that one more time, just let it sink in. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that none of us are believers until we submit our desires to that which was brought forth, the Quran and the Sunnah. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, brothers and sisters, I give you Imam Suhaib Webb, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. I think this is my second time here, and it's an honor to be here again. I didn't know I was giving a speech at this moment, hence I'm a little bit off, like the Miami Heat were yesterday, but I ain't that off. But tonight we will show you why it's called Boss Town, not Boston, when we play. But it's great to be here, and more of a blessing, really. Imam Majid is is a teacher, is a friend, is a beloved person, and his community is a trend-setting community, mashallah. And also to be with Sheikh Omar Suleiman, who's really an up-and-coming, talented, very moderate, incredibly talented and eloquent speaker and scholar that, I hope you take advantage of him while he's here. It's very rare that you'll find someone his age that Allah has blessed to have such an ability that he has, mashallah. So we ask Allah to increase him, and actually saw him a week ago in ICNA, and now we're here again, so it's like 2 weeks running. So we'll see how long we can keep it going in this Best of 7 series here. But it's just really great to be with Omar, and Omar is someone who really encouraged people to try to benefit from him. Take advantage of these younger people, like Abdul Nasser Janga is another example of someone I think you should really try to benefit from. Muslima Permel for the sisters. She's a young woman who's just graduated from Egypt. So you have this young, mashallah, the Avengers, I guess, type crew that's coming out, and Omar is really at the head of that, and you really hope you'll be able to benefit from him, inshallah. I hope I also will be able to benefit from him as well. So the topic I was given is Deen over desires, and what I'm going to do is really just talk on a few issues that I think are core and central, if you will, to the problem. And the first is that understanding who we are and our purpose. And I understand we hear this all the time. I was created to worship. God created me to worship. But what does that really mean? And then that touches on what type of information, what type of things are falling into my heart and my mind that develop a sense of being that I have about myself. And there was a scholar who he really pointed to this in a beautiful way. He said, if you had a home, a very valuable home, would you leave the doors to that home open for anyone to enter? Would you just allow anyone to walk up into your crib and, turn on the Comcast or, PTV or whatever and eat your samosas and chill? Or maybe if our Somali brothers and sisters, your iyun, you wouldn't allow that to happen. So he said, well, that's the metaphor of the heart, and that your eyes are doors that are potentially left open. Your ears are doors that are potentially left open. Your mouth, your tongue, your hands. These are all doors that need to be secured, because our relationship with Allah, and I talked about this at ICNA and I wasn't able to finish, so it's nice to pick off after that long comma for the week. But our relationship with Allah begins with ma'arif, begins with how we understand and know Him. And Ar-Razi, rahimahullah, mentioned that there are 2 ways to do this. And he said one is by reflecting on the favors of God. I became Muslim when I was 20. One of the things that caused me to become Muslim is I used to go look at the stars. And I used to go out at night. Oklahoma, it's like, mashallah, you can see everything. You can see Pluto with the naked eye. It's just dark there. There's no city, right? You could just see forever. And it's absolutely beautiful. And I would be with my friend, and we would, be doing certain things. And I would say to him, man, someone had to make this, man. Like, someone made this. This is incredible. And we'd have this discussion about who God was. And that's one of the things that led me to become Muslim. The other way is by someone who really comes to the conclusion that God is God, man. Allah is Allah. And after that, they are able to create a definition of reality around them. And both are mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times will mention His ni'am, His favors, and then mention His ibadah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu. So He mentions that He's the Lord, He's the Lord of everything, He's the most gracious, the most merciful, the master on a day when no one will have control except Him, and then He orders you to worship Him. So He mentions His favors, and then He mentions His worship. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. That in the heavens and the earth and the creation of the night and day, there are signs for people. So that's one methodology of coming to a conclusion. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقَتَ هَذَا. Oh Allah, you have not created this batila, without any aim, without any purpose. The other means are for those people that Allah touches their heart, and they are immediately exposed to His sultan, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His wahdaniyah, His oneness and His unity. And this is the maqam of Umar. إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني وأقيم الصلاة لذكري. So here we see it inverted. Remember this, and those of you Islamic school teachers, we really have to begin to have people who are very familiar with wahi, that we can start to teach these trends to our children. How do you know God? What are the methodologies of understanding and knowing Allah? And the other form is that Allah says to Umar in the 24th chapter of the Quran to us in general, indeed I am your Lord, there is no God but me, so worship me. So one is through creation, knowing God. The other way is knowing God and then knowing His creation. And this is extremely important because this helps us to create a real definition of who we are. There's a book that mothers and fathers you should read and young adults, So Sexy So Soon. Read that book, man. The objectification of women in American society and in the world, the pornification of the world, where how we look at each other is rooted in a hyper-sexualized culture. So women are no longer women, they're And men are no longer men, they're six-packs. But Islam, if we're able to create an identity based on Tawheed, and Allah is our Lord, we understand that people are the ibad of Allah. And that they're human beings, not objects of my desires. But let's keep it on the individual level. So that means that in order to create a solid foundation for who I am and what I'm about, I need to have a really, really, really strong, healthy relationship with revelation. And this is the importance of the Quran. And the centrality of its message is to identify who you are. As one of our mashaykh said, that the creed of Islam answers the following important questions. These are the most important. Number one, min ayna jit, where have I come from? And where am I headed? And why am I here? And what's my ultimate destination? These are four fundamental questions that Islam identifies for us. Because when we are not able to create a proper definition for ourselves, then that leads to acting in ways which are contrary to the reason God created us. And that's for worship. And having that relationship with revelation is key in developing that understanding of who we are and our purpose in life. Imam al-Ghazali mentions a beautiful example of this during the time of Umar. And what's interesting is it's almost like a study that was done. Because Umar would go and study the people, istiqra'. And he came upon this little slave boy. And this was the lowest, member, if you will, economically of society at their time. And when Umar came to this young boy and he said to him, hey, sell me one of your sheep, man. Hook me up, yo. One of them sheep right there. If you're from the South, you know what that means. And this young boy said, I can't because they belong to my master. And then Umar, he said to him, but your master is on the other side of the hill. He's not going to see if you sell me these sheep. And he said, I'm not talking about that master. I'm talking about the master in the heavens. So Al-Ghazali comments, look how ma'arif, the understandings, and this young boy's identity allows him to take a stance, which, now you got people going to take PhDs in Aqidah to get this understanding. Because of the centrality of revelation in that time. Twitter in the time of Umar was the Quran. Fads in the time of Umar were based on Islamic kind of environmental realities. That's why Islamic schools are very important, by the way. Because you create a set of norms based on Islam. So first and foremost, deen over desires. The question really that I need you to ask yourself is, who are you? How do you see yourself? How do you identify yourself? Are you always the main character in the production? Is the entire world your servant and you suck from it everything from Call of Duty 3 to, my new sneakers to, going to make tawaf in the mall to all kind of things? Is the world created to serve me? And that's a very dangerous idea. And it permeates popular culture to the extent that you can get rich or die trying. To the extent that it's about young money. To the extent that there's no church in the wild. To the extent that it's about iPad and MySpace. It's no longer this land is your land, this land is my land. It's this land is my land, don't even think about it. And we have adopted that psyche because it appeals to the carnal nature of human beings. Allah says, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ مُفْلِحُونَ. Whoever is safe from being extremely miserly with his or herself. And what has happened is that we've lost our sense of identity. We're like Simba in The Lion King. We think we're pigs and we're lions. We're not really sure who we are. And that's due to what falls into our brain. That's what is due to what settles in our heart and creates values and allows us to objectify our existence. So when we see the crisis in marriage in the Muslim community, and we wonder what's the problem is how do those young couples look at the process of marriage? It's not an event, it's a process. And if we're to ask most young Muslim boys, what's the most important part about marriage? He's going to say, taking care of that business. Well, no offense. Real talk. And if we have the girl, she might say, I'm going to like princess, and take care of me, and we're going to have like nice shoes, and look like glitter jilbab, right? Dre beats with like, hua wahia and a heart in the middle, right? We're all gassed up about really the things that aren't that important. Whereas when we look at marriage, it's an organic process. It's the height of expression of love because the love for a Muslim woman that a man has comes from his love for Allah. And her love for her man comes from her love of Allah. And that creates an understanding in the household about how things function, about sacrifice, about not being selfish, about not being material. And we see how hard it is for certain people in our community to get married because we have been inundated with false constructs that have no relationship to Islam. So you could have a young, attractive, desi girl go home and say, Baba, I want to marry this white convert. Nope. But Baba, he's an exec in a corporation. He took Shahada 10 years ago. He's not just in it for a day or two. No Gora Sabs. Quran never said no Gora Sab. And I'm not saying that. And what will happen now is unfortunate shit. He don't like daisies. Muji urda atihi, okay? Don't even try to step like that. I could have said white Americans too. But the reality that I'm using is that there are certain constructs that have seeped into our hearts that have caused us to forget who the heck we are. And because we've forgotten who we are, we don't know what our objectives are. And we're confused. وَهُمْ فِي أَمْرٍ مَرِيجٍ. Allah says this in Surah Al-Qaf, that they are, with their regard to their affairs, completely mukhallateen. They're mixed up. They don't know which way they're headed. And when the soul is not aware of its purpose is to be the ibad of Allah, to be the servant of God, and a steward of humanity, you have chaos. No matter how much money that person is given, there'll be chaos. Money is not an answer. Money is a means, if used properly. I mean, there are people that had a lot of money, ended up with an elephant and a chimpanzee named Bubbles and a Ferris wheel in the backyard. Sing and beat it. And he beat it all right. Out this dunya. How many starlets have we seen from Hillary Duff to Millie, what's her name, to the other one on Freaky Friday? These people are falling like flies, man, with an AC on. So it's not about money. It's about something else. And the Prophet ﷺ reminds us of the centrality of our existence is that we are the creation of Allah. And we believe that His khalq is from His tafaddul, from His benevolence. So now we see young Muslims talking about issues, right? And look how it'll start out. It won't start out with, this is what the Prophet taught us. This is what the Quran taught. They'll be like, well, maybe, possibly. Maybe you can make it work. Can't we all get along 20 years ago? Well, that's great if it comes after the centrality of revelation and the focus of the Quran. So what I will do when I say deen over desires, because I know how it rolls, what I would like to talk about is a methodology, I think, of education on a personal level It's not sheikh or bust, yo. Not everybody has a sheikh around their crib. They can go and sit with him and wax on, wax off for 6 or 7 hours a day and slowly build this incredible aura. You know, I want to be like Sheikh Hamza. I want to be like Imam Zayd. I want to be like Suhaib. I want like, Senegal. Dude, you live in Baltimore, bro. But I'm telling you, if you went to Imam Safir Rab, you would learn a lot too. But the idea of sheikh or bust is not really going to work here anymore. And we have to be honest, we respect our scholars, and when our scholars give us access, yes, but it's not realistic that they can constantly be there for us. So what is a methodology that we can maybe apply to our own lives that will help us to develop a sense of definition for who we are? I mean, you have 9-year-old girls. My degree's in education. You have 9-year-old girls standing up in the classroom saying, I'm your slave, just make it rain, bend me over, holler over. And she's 9? 9 years old? And we think it's funny because our hearts are sick. Because the Prophet would cry at something like that, but we'll laugh even as Muslims. And we're seen as a rahmah to everyone. But we'll laugh about it because we have hypocrisy in our hearts and arrogance in the heart. What's this crazy white boy talking about? I'm sitting in the back with my girlfriend laughing at him. Because the heart is sick. A 9-year-old girl has already lost not her womanhood, she lost her fitrah. And the fitrah is a problem. I was in my city, Roxbury, Massachusetts, where Malcolm X lived for many years. I was driving to the masjid. I see a woman taking a group of small children. She's a teacher in a school, man. She has a shirt on, these dumb glitter shirts that people wear now. I don't know how you wash that, by the way. Don't let no brother try to wash that because it'll be all messed up. Right? I put on extra dry, and it blew up. Glitter, but now we got a glitter dryer. See, you wanted material things. Look, baby, bling, bling. Right? This teacher is walking across the street. I see a group of children. You know, when you see a group of children, your fitrah kicks in. Kids. But you know what she had on her shirt? I'm sexy and I know it. I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing. You're teaching kids and you're wearing a shirt like that? The loss of fitrah. And that's the danger of the secular social sciences. It's about they lost their manhood. They lost their womanhood. No, they lost their fitrah. And the fitrah is an ibara, is a term on having a heart that's with Allah. And limbs that are with Allah. And Imam Ibn Qayyim said, this is the edifice of ubudiyyah. That when the heart and the limbs are in agreement in their servitude towards God. فَأَثَابَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِمَا قَالُوا. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah said that He gave them Jannah for what they said. But also Allah asked us to guide our limbs like that. يَغْضُونَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُونَ فُرُوجُهُمْ. But also He said, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. So the heart and the limbs have to be together. The character and the ibadah have to be together for complete ubudiyyah. So as Muslims in America, when I talk about, bacha Quran, or in Malay, or iqra' kitab ya rajul, read the book, read the Quran, there has to be a meaning behind why we're asking people to read the Quran. And one of the meanings is to save your identity. Young women should ask themselves about how you are allowing beauty to be defined for you instead of defining beauty. That the concept of the beautiful woman has been redefined by people. The only thing they want from you is your money, your dead prayers. In the Samoan Islands, the Samoans are traditionally very big people, right? When they got cable TV, within 3 years, anorexia became a problem in the Samoan Islands because of the redefinition of beauty. What is beautiful? Look at certain creams that exist in the Muslim world. I was in Egypt, they have a cream called Be White Cream. I said, what am I do with that? Be invisible? I'm already white. They're like, Wallahi, akramaka Allah, wallah bihadha al-lawn wa sharrafaka rabbak, yani. It's like, what the heck? He's like, Allah bless you because you're white. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Alhamdulillah, you too. I mean, you got skin. You don't like your color? Just rip your skin off. Let's see what happens. It's like, well, la alhamdulillah. Yani. It's like, alhamdulillah. And then we know, right? Muji urdati hai. We know about Fair and Lovely, right? We know about Fair and Lovely, right? We've allowed ourselves to be reconstructed and redefined. And if you really want to ask yourself, why so much money, in Pakistan? I love Pakistan. Don't get me wrong. Zindagi be bandagi shemindagi. We boys. We boys. We banging. I'm going to ball you up tonight, though. And I love gulab jamun, right? But let's be honest. You have 165 million people in Pakistan right now, right? In 1990, the military spending was 15 times what it was for education and the environment. What are the two biggest problems facing Pakistan right now? Education and the environment. You have more than 146 million cattle in Pakistan. So they're eating up all the vegetation. Then you have a drought. Then you have this massive number of people. How is it going to play out in society over time, man? And we wonder what's the problem. In America, what is the amount of money we spend on defense? You know why we spend so much money on defense all over the world? Because we love dunya. If we love life and love people, we would spend much more money on education and the environment. Because we are all cruising for a bruising when this environment thing kicks in. Don't think it's not real. Don't listen to Hannity and Combs, those two masters of the environment. And of course, Sheikh O'Reilly. But all of that has a systemic impact on the condition of people's hearts. Because people have become materialists. People love this life. They would rather bling and look good and shine and be fine. And especially the West. Let's leave Pakistan out of it. The way we live here, the average American needs 59 sweatshop workers to keep your life the way it is. So that you can have your iPad 3B or your Droid. I can have my fresh kicks, those ain't bowling shoes. Right? We can be fly. I'm going to be fly, but be fly with being responsible. But all of that is a manifestation of a lack of identity and purpose. Deen over desires is not about some kind of, mystical movement. It's about becoming responsible for your life, living responsibly, becoming a fair trade shopper at home, going green as a masjid, putting a green roof on the masjid. In Boston, we're the first masjid that I know of that has solar panels. Thinking responsibly. Tazkiyah to nafs is not, the beauty of spirituality is not that it's internalized and individualized. The beauty of spirituality is that it has a systemic impact across the world. And that's why the Prophet said, even the fish in the sea pray for the scholar. Because the scholar knows how to treat the fish. Which, by the way, our fisheries are depleting as well. Enjoy it while you can. And why would the Prophet tell us about eat this, don't eat too much? Why would he say the thing I fear for you most is the dunya? Not shirk. Because the dunya is no joke, man. My daughter, she fat. When I was living in Egypt, she never went to McDonald's. I don't have a problem with McDonald's. I just don't eat there because I don't like cardboard for lunch. But she had never been, and I told my wife, I said, baby, let's see how long they can go before they notice the golden arches. Let's not introduce them, let's not go, hey, we'll go have a Sunday at McDonald's, Eid Mubarak. It's the biha, alhamdulillah. Nah, I said, let's not tell them, let's do a McDonald's test, yo. See, how long it takes Ronald, because Ronald's a criminal, man. Ronald do drive-bys on you. Don't even think Ronald is nice and Grimace, that big gangster, the purple dude. And the Hamburglar, he's a thief, breaking in folks' houses. Sorry about that. So I told my daughter, my wife, how long you think it'll go before Ronald can get her? So after 3 years, one day, Baba, أنا بشوف ده إيه حاجة اسمها ice cream ولا French fries in Egyptian language. I said, where? And she said, I don't know the place, but it has this في M يعني مكتوب بالذهب. It's like an M written in gold. I said, oh, Lord. I said, let's go. Let's go have a happy meal that will clog your arteries and give you a heart attack and kill you before you're 40. and a plastic toy that your brother might choke on. Let's go. But what happened that year, we left McDonald's. On the way back, the first King Kong movie came out, right? Not the one Jessica Lange for the old people, the one for this generation. Whoops. And I remember I was sitting on a plane. My dad had grown up watching Egyptian cartoons, no offense, but you know. So King Kong starts climbing on a building, man. There's a big monkey. And my daughter, she stood up in qiyam position. And the TV is here on the plane, right? And there's the monkey. And then she turned to me and she said, Dad, that is amazing. There is a monkey climbing New York, right? Point being, although it's funny and humorous, look at the power of this thing, man. The power of it. And that's why I see my boy Native Dean in the house, man. We need to re-inject into that matrix positive things. That's a wajib. That's not mustahab. That's wajib min nahayat al-maqasid al-sharia. So my question to you on this Deen over Dunya issue, because this is a 25-minute talk, I don't know how we're going to rock this in 25, is real talk. What the heck do you put in your brain, man? What do you allow to create the constructs of your identity? If you listen to hip-hop, right, I don't have a problem with hip-hop. I rock it sometimes if I'm with Sean T doing Insanity. I understand that. But in general, I have rules for the hip-hop I listen to, right? Very rarely, but on occasion. But if I'm listening to like some misogynist, crazy, Big L type stuff, I'm gonna marry one of these nice little Bents over here. And I've been watching pornography for 5 years. And that has shaped my understanding of sexuality. And my mother and father have never talked to me about what it means to be with a woman. Daddy has never taken me out with the halal beer, set me down, did some fishing and said, so boy, there's this thing called a woman. We like them. And we act dumb around them and do stupid stuff. And they act equally as dumb as we do. And for some reason, God wants us to be together, right? If we don't have that conversation, I'm saying that, of course, to be funny, but we know that there's a real conversation. Who is going to create the understanding of being a man and a husband in the home? When the Prophet would ask his companions, why don't you marry this type of woman so you can enjoy yourselves? If I said what the Prophet said in Bukhari, you would never invite me. You might not anyways, but you would definitely never invite me back again. Because I can't believe he said that, because you're more pious than the Prophet. That's the problem. When the Prophet said, did you bam, bam, bam? He's like, well, that's important because the marriage needs to be healthy, bro. Did you take care of her? Did you make her feel good? Did you wine her, dine her, you know? Wine halal, of course. And the Prophet told his companion, don't act like an animal, man, with your wife. Act like a man. He taught the companions what it meant to be a husband and to love a woman. The identity, because they had a whole plethora of Jahiliyyah poetry. If I read, قِفَ نَبْكِ مِنْ ذِكْرِ حَبِيبٍ وَمَنْزِلِ بِسِقْتِ اللِّوَى بَيْنَ الدُّخُولِ فَحَوْمَدِ. Listen to Imru Qais, how he talks about his girlfriend. It's filthy. But the Prophet dealt with that idea, that archetype of a man, by taking young men to the side in his community and saying, do this, don't do that. And Allah said, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً وَعَشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. So it creates an understanding of men. Why would the best student of Imam Ahmed on his deathbed, when people ask him, what's the one thing you did in this life, man, that you can bank on? He said, I never abused my wife. I never made her upset over something that, was from me. I never treated her badly. This is a great muhaddith. Because the scholars, we know them for their knowledge, but the early generations knew them for their character. That's what endeared them to the society, not their knowledge only. And secondly, sister, if you watch Bollywood all the time, and you think Amr Khan is going to come home in a limousine, right, looking all chiseled. Hello, I've come from work. How's my flower? Right? And he's an Old Spice man. Old Spice man is not coming to your crib to pick you up, girl. Because the Old Spice man doesn't exist, although his name is Isaiah Mustafa. He's a Muslim from Santa Clara, I know him. And he does smell good. Wallahi, the brother smells good. But that's the itr. That's the itr from the tabligh, brothers. But real talk, what are you putting into your head before you get married? How do you envision your husband? I met a sister one time, she's like, Wallahi, I want to marry the most religious brother in the world. I said, really, I know one. She said, well, can he give me a sauna? A sauna? We're trying to pay college debt here. And you want a sauna? Okay, maybe just a jacuzzi? We're going to live in Motel 6, baby, for the first 6 years until I pay off my student loans. But we ain't going to miss Fajr. And we're going to have our tahajjud. And that initial struggle will make us strong as a couple. So, Deen over desire is just one point because not much time. Is ask yourself, man, what is it that you are building your personality on? What are you constructing your identity off of? Call of Duty 3? You gonna buzzkill your baby? No, what is it that we are constructing identity on? And that's why I say it's wajib to send your kids, fard to send your kids to Muslim schools, man. Because it is central to creating a Muslim identity. As it is wajib for these schools to be at the best, highest standards they can be. Because we have to create a concept of understanding and identity before we can battle the soul. Because if I don't know who I am, how can I keep my soul in check? And the last point I will mention is how you should go about it, because I have about 0 minutes left. Number one, it's not sheikh or bust. So you should start with memorizing some Quran. Asking someone to listen to you as you read. I had a sheikh from Mauritania, his son wanted to go to college for engineering. He said, no, not to memorize the Quran. I'm not telling you to memorize the whole Quran. But there are certain parts of the Quran you should memorize. Like I think it's very important for young men and women in America to memorize Surah An-Nur. Talk about character, slander, how we look at women, how we look at men, how we speak of each other as mu'mineen. Surah Al-Hujurat is called Surah Al-Adab, the 49th chapter. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Umar said, teach men Surah Al-Ma'idah, radiyallahu anhu. The last part of the Quran, Juz Amma, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Surah Al-Rahman, Surah Yasin, Surah Dukhan, Surah Al-Mulk, which will keep you from the punishments of the grave if you read it every day, as Sayyidina Rasulullah said. So the Quran, first and foremost. Number two, out of all the books of hadith, there's two you have to have in your house. The 40 hadith of Nawawi and the Riyadh Salihin of Nawawi. You have to have that, yo. Man kana عنده رياض الصالحين فكأن نبي في بيتي. هذا مهم جدا. Number three, you should live next to a dynamic community that's not ran by the Sopranos. No, real talk. Just going to let these young people be young people and do weird stuff and bother us. And I don't know about that. They brought this whitey imam and he talks dirty and I don't like all this crazy stuff. That's good. Because that means they're articulating Islam according to how they understand Islam and are moving in a different direction. 35 to 25 in the Muslim community. 40 to 25 are AWOL in America. Because they gave up, man. They got tired of battling with the chachas and the uncles. Real talk. They got tired of battling with the elders, man, with all respect. So what happened? We lost generations of young people. I have a young student of mine, she's a girl, did her degree, law school, Berkeley, learned Arabic, brilliant woman. I left, I came back from Egypt, she's gone. I saw her, I said, why aren't you in the community anymore? She said, I was told I cannot be part of this community because I'm a woman. And that wasn't in Berkeley. I said, really? So what are you doing now? She says, I'm a lawyer. I said, I want to ask you a question. How much do they pay you an hour for legal advice? You know what she told me, Sheikh Omar? $500 an hour is what she charges. Can you imagine? Our community would not use a woman for free to help in its growth and development, who corporations are willing to pay her 1 hour of her time. How much? $500. AWOL. So third is to live around a dynamic community who's willing to pass the baton to the entire community, men and women, young and old. And I don't like this term, but I'm just using it, immigrant and indigenous, convert and born-vert, all kind of verts, right? Because we have to be honest, the converts convert, but they don't participate. We don't see them around because the community is not comfortable. And us converts, we're losing our kids because we bring our kids to masajid and they're not treated properly. The last thing is to do your best to get a great education in America. Wallahi, it's important, man. Get an education. Master a subject, because imams are only as good as their communities. In Boston right now, we did a survey, and I'm sorry to take this time, but this is important, man. And you didn't fly me here for no 10-minute talk anyways. And my honorarium ain't that cheap. Right, just joking. So, although we can talk. In Boston, we did a survey. We're in Roxbury. We have a young convert sister, Sarah King, a physician. She did a survey of the whole community, Muslim, non-Muslim. We said we're thinking of opening up a preventive healthcare clinic, because preventive healthcare is the medicine of the rich. You know, massages, acupuncture, weight loss advice, stuff that no one needs, right? Right. Sickle cell anemia is rampant in our community. Shingles is rampant in our community. We have an elderly Somali community, Skawaran Fian, alhamdulillah, in our community. Yeah, watch out. Who the elderly people need certain care and they don't speak English, right? Then she came to me with the statistics and she said, Imam, I'm glad you came from Azhar. Let's get this rocking. I said, girl, I went to Azhar. I didn't go to Johns Hopkins. What does that word mean? And she was like, you can't rock this? I was like, I can't rock this. But why don't we find professional partners in our community, physicians, who will be willing to volunteer their time and open up this clinic? Man, mashallah, because of Boston being what Boston is, just boss town, mashallah, we had more than 30 people come forward. Muslims who are masseurs, man. Can you imagine a Muslim masseur giving massages to people in the hood, man? People that got 6 kids at home, who work 40 hours a week and come off the subway, walk by the masjid and see a sign, free massages. You think when they go home and turn on the TV and they say Muslims are terrorists? Nah, man, that Muslim just held me with my neck. I love the Muslims. Muslims are great. Going back tomorrow, right? So the last is that you join a community that's federated. And what I mean by federated is that it's not like you have here with Imam Majid, mashallah, such an incredible model that everyone follows as he exhibit. It's not a one-man show. But everyone is able to contribute. And if you go to school and master a subject and you get yourself financially stable, you're going to be able to volunteer time back in your community. In America, we should really think about a mentorship project for young American Muslims, women and men who can be around Muslim professionals who are deenin and dunyan, so that they can set that example for them. So it all goes back to the simple idea of understanding who we are. Our purpose is to be here for the pleasure of Allah, to serve Him. He doesn't need that. We need it more than anything else. And He created us. That's the centrality. That's our automatic GPS. Our GPS is Jannah. That's why Allah said to Adam and Eve in the plural, ihbitu. All of you get out of Jannah, because we were in the loins of Adam when he was expelled from Jannah. Therefore, our real home, our real return is not Boston, is Jannah, back with our parents. We go to our mom and daddy's crib in Jannah. So understanding that tawheed and that concept of worship is central to all of this. May Allah reward you. I took a little bit more time than I wanted to. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.